What up? What up, guys? I missed you guys. It's only been 4 days, about 4 days, but your boy Zaf is back with another classic rendition of Fighter Academy's very own Mastery Mondays. So today we're going to be talking about how do you play faster? How can we play faster? What is the reason you'd want to play faster? We're going to get down into it, all right, guys? So I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. Thank you guys for joining me. Let everybody know that we're live and that it's about time that mother bleepers level up. You know what I'm saying? So let's get down into it. It's going to be a nice stream today. I think you guys are going to take away a lot from this. As always, headphones on so you guys know I'm serious. Bang! Oh. Arcade stick on deck. Okay. Hold up. And the handy dandy notebook. That's what I'm talking about, guys. What's going on, fellas? Everybody. Man. So let's get down into it, alright? So I made this. You guys might remember the blackboard. So today, I've split up the lesson into 2 parts, okay? It's about the mindset aspect of playing faster and the technicality that goes into playing faster. So that's like more of the in-game stuff, in-game specific things. But it does me no good if I try to teach you guys how to do things without having the mindset behind it. You know what I'm saying? I don't build houses on sand. I'm trying to build houses on straight up New York concrete that Timberlands can't stomp through. You feel me? That's what I'm trying to do with you guys. And I'm pretty sure I have been accomplishing this so far. So we're going to keep it up. We're going to keep that momentum going, all right? Because that's the standard in our academy. So let's talk about playing faster. So why would you want to play fast? Because, some people like to play slow, all right? And I totally get that. But when you play a certain pace all the time, you become predictable. And when you become predictable, that means it's a lot easier for your opponent to potentially intercept your attacks or stop you in your tracks, whatever. They can basically just counter you a lot easier because you just have this set way of going about things, okay? So it's really good to introduce that really fast, nimble gameplay from time to time. You don't have to play like this all the time, of course, right? Because it's not realistic to just sprint for like an entire set, right? Because you're going to get knocked down at some point, or your opponent's going to keep you out with normals and all this stuff. So, you can try in theory, but then you will probably end up losing because of it. So this is more so about in those moments of figuring out when and where you'd want to do it, which is subjective, of course, but I'm going to kind of just lay out the foundation for you guys, and then you guys can decide on your own how you're going to go about it and just add it into your own play style, okay? So, the mindset aspect of playing fast. So, we say that playing fast, you can overwhelm your opponent, right? Because your opponent is expecting you to play one way, and all of a sudden you play a completely different way or a different pace. All right. So with playing fast, it's really a mindset thing because anybody can press buttons really fast. You've seen the rookies, right? You've seen rookie to like gold ranked players that they keep moving, right? But they're moving fast, but they're not moving like overwhelming, like in a accurate, effective way, right? Because you can move fast, but then you can move fast in a way where it's controlled and it just feels like you're moving at breakneck speeds and your opponent gets overwhelmed and it's just so dramatic and they don't know what to do, all right? So they're like in this whirlwind, this hurricane of emotions because they don't know how to stop you. They don't even know what's on your mind, what you're going to do next, okay? So when you want to play fast, you have to be decisive. And what does that mean? So basically, you are going to stick to the thing that you want to do, all right? You don't want to have a conversation in the middle of you playing because if all of a sudden you start talking to yourself, or talking yourself out of options rather, you're going to be split and now you're going to have a choice, right? You don't want to have choice when you play fast. You just want to do things and just commit to it. You want to be decisive. You can create systems outside of a match and then, practice them. And then over time, you incorporate them so then you have a flow chart. That's why flow charts are so strong in this game, are because like playing fast plays into being on the offensive, and being on the offensive generally makes you win in this game, especially because of the design of the game, the damage, right? The hurt boxes and hit boxes being kind of shaky in terms of reacting to it, so defensive play isn't rewarded as much. So the game encourages people to brawl it out, okay? So being decisive, you want to stick to the thing. If I feel like I'm going to, when I dash in, I'm going to do this sequence of buttons, this block string, just do it. Just do it, all right? And trust yourself to do it. So we're going to get into the trust aspect of the mindset in 3 examples later. But so the next thing is, to be decisive, you primarily need to have this acceptance of whatever happens, happens, okay? So, sometimes you play somebody and you're like, damn, you're just doing shit, right? But it's working, and then you get frustrated. And the reason why it's working is because they just see the reward before they see the risk. So they are basically accepting whatever happens because they don't care about whatever happens. They just want what they want, right? So that's kind of the good of being really tunnel visioned on playing a certain way, is that you can avoid becoming confused and indecisive where you're split, like, should I do this, should I do this, okay? You want to accept things as they are when they come. It's not to say like you don't take into account risk per se, but it's more so like, I'm going to do this, and if they so happen to get hit by it, great. If they block it out, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to grow impatient. I just move on to the next scenario. So you're not fighting in the past anymore. You're not fighting projecting the future. You're in the moment. Like, this is the situation I'm in, and these are the things I'm going to do. Okay? So that's the mindset aspect of acceptance. Also, you're going to want a clear goal in mind. You need to have a goal. You need to establish in your mind visually what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So certain players, they want to get the knockdown, right? Other players, maybe they want to counter hit their opponent. Maybe somebody else wants to set up a whiff throw scenario. They want to shimmy you somehow. They want to convince you they're going to throw you. Another person might want to set up cross-up range. Another person might want to just push you to the corner. Like, you want to have a clear goal in mind, because when you have a clear goal, that means there's no distractions. You're not ambiguous on what you're trying to accomplish. You know what you want to accomplish. So therefore, when you're not accomplishing it, it's very easy for you to move on, because you know what direction you're being pulled towards. If I'm trying to push you in the corner, but I'm the one that's in the corner, then something's wrong, right? So it makes it a lot easier for me to play in that direction, to play towards that goal, okay? You want to have a clear goal in mind when you're pressuring and playing fast, because that way you don't confuse yourself. The second thoughts start to creep into your mind while you're pressuring, you start to play slow. So something's going to suffer. Either your hit confirms are going to suffer, your spacing's going to suffer, maybe your anti-airs. I don't know, but it changes up. You want to just have that clear goal, and you just stick to it, okay? And you, by being accepting of the repercussions and being decisive and just sticking to it, you'll be able to play faster, all right? And to tie all of these 3 things together, you have to have trust. So you have to trust in your training. You have to trust in your training. I cannot stress this enough. The second you start to hesitate because you're like, I don't know if I could do it, then you're not going to be able to do it. You have to just absolutely flow like water, legit. Just, there's no interruptions. Just go with the flow. Okay? Because the second you start to have this hesitation, you're gonna start to slow down. You're gonna start analyzing. When you analyze, things turn into a process. And when things turn into a process, it becomes a step-by-step approach. All right? And we don't have time to sit there and analyze the situation and go, maybe I should do this. Like, no. We can do that in neutral, and we can do that before and after matches. But when you want to play fast, you have to just kind of commit to these things. All right? That's where the decisiveness comes into play, the acceptance aspect of it, and having that clear goal in mind, okay? So it's all about kind of removing and stripping the confusion from yourself as a player, so that way you can be one with your character, all right? So they're just like an extension of you, okay? So it's just like instinct to screen, like damn near immediately, all right? The only delay would be your button presses at that point, okay? So, So when you are playing fast, like, what I like to think of it as, you know how I told you guys about big moves and laggy moves and stuff like that? You want to play, you're playing very well in terms of pace and overwhelming your opponent through speed when your big moves become your small moves and your small moves become unseeable. Does that make sense to you guys? So essentially, those big moves, those laggy moves like dashing, jumping, your special attacks, they seem like they're light attacks. They're so fast that they're like light attacks in your opponent's eyes. And those light attacks and those small, subtle movements are so much faster because they're so much more subtle, because you have all these influences wrapped around your behaviors that make it really hard for your opponent to interpret what's going on. So that's gonna be the technical aspect of it, which I'm gonna show you in a second. But so you guys follow along so far? This is making sense, I hope. Okay. So for the technical aspect, now when you are, I will show you guys in the game. Okay, so we're gonna start with the first one, which is having varied block stun. Okay, so for all of this, you see the key word is varied, right? Because the point is to play faster. You're not doing anything faster because the inputs are always going to be the inputs. You're always going to have a set window to do things, right? I'm not going to be able to do this inside of this animation. So how do you play faster? It's in the perception of your opponent's mind that you're playing faster, not in your mind. It's actually your opponent's mind. So in order to do this, you have these 4 key ways are what I've recognized as ways to speed up your play. So what you would do is you would vary your block stun. You can vary your advantage. You can vary your timing. And you can vary your movement. Okay? So I'm going to show you some examples. And this should be able to hammer it home for you guys. Alright? So let's go into the game. I'm going to go back and forth between this and the game so that way you guys can keep track of the notes. Okay, guys? Alright, so let's start with the varied block stun with the lights. So I have Cammy here. Alright. Now, whenever you have a light attack, what do you think of a light attack? Light attacks are very fast, they recover very quick, and they don't have a lot of block stun, okay? So the thing is, a lot of people in Street Fighter V, they pressure with medium attacks because they're hit confirmable, right? But that's not to say light attacks aren't hit confirmable. They just take a lot more work to hit confirm with, okay? So what ends up happening is that people kind of become really autopilot-y with pressure, and what they'll do is they will just use medium attacks. So let's say, you know, something like that with Cammy, right? Okay. So the thing about this is that because it's a medium poke, medium pokes have more active frames than lights typically, and they have more recovery, they have more block stun. Okay, so the moment that a medium attack starts up to the point of recovery, it's a lot easier to interpret the situation, okay? So when you're constantly pressuring with the same types of normals, the same type of block stun, your opponent can get a feel for your offense, and it's a lot easier for them to recognize the situation because the medium has so much block stun, okay? Now the light attacks, though, the light attacks are very dangerous for your opponent to try to interrupt because the block stun is so fast, right, that you can't really react to it. You just see it. You have to kind of commit to it. You can't just be like, oh, he did a light, he walked up, I'm going to press a button. Like, no, there's so little block stun that the opponent is already recovered, and they're obviously plus also on a lot of the light attacks in the game, right? So they're already at advantage. They have already recovered, right? But they have less block stun. So where medium pokes and heavy pokes might have advantage also, but they have more block stun, so it's easier to confirm that your opponent is plus. But the light attacks are so much faster on startup, faster on recovery, sometimes less active frame, so there's less block stun, that it's kind of like an in and out situation, like, you know. So let's see. I'll show you guys an example. So Cammy does, right? Let me see. Try this again. Okay. See, now this situation is going to be a lot harder to react to than that. Alright? Because, so, I'm seeing that, oh, Cammy clearly did 2 medium pokes. Whereas, if I try to do that with the light attacks the lights are so quick on recovery. By the time I say, oh, he just did 2 lights, oh, he's like, I'm already gonna get crapped. So I have to be more preemptive with my defensive options against light attacks. So even if, like, let's say for example, somebody does a medium with Cammy, right? I can block it and say, oh, he did a medium punch. It's plus, they're most likely gonna follow it up with pressure, right? Whereas with Cammy, it's like, if Cammy does light kick pressure, right? Or light attack pressure, and I try to confirm it visually and then DP, I'm gonna get interrupted on my follow-up DP. That's like pretty much a given. Alright. So let's say, see? Like, see, I'm trying to like react to it and DP. I'm getting hit on my buffer. I'd have to commit to it like this. I'd have to just commit to it. Right? Whereas if she's doing medium attacks, there's so much block stun that it's a lot easier for me to mash and stuff. So it's actually really good to pressure with light attacks against people that mash also, because you're more likely to clip them on their buffer too. Okay? So the thing is that because you start pressuring with light attacks, your opponent is now forced to get more committal with their defensive options. So that means they have to just straight up be decisive with their answer. And the more decisive an opponent is with their defensive option, the better it is for you, because then it's a lot easier to narrow down their defensive options. If they're not like, if they don't have that variety in terms of like their timing, then it's a lot easier for you to frame trap and stuff like that, okay? So that's why I prefer to actually frame trap with light attacks, is because I have more variety in terms of my pressure. I can throw, I can shimmy, I can, you know, hit confirm, I can confirm anti-medium attacks anyways, you know? And on top of that, when you're pressuring with light attacks, I don't know if you guys forgot about this thing called gray damage. You don't get gray damage when you're pressuring with light attacks. So it's actually really good in certain scenarios where I don't want to give my opponent the V-trigger bar, so I'm pressuring with light attacks, right? Because look, I don't get any... I'm going to just show it just for the sake of the discussion, but... See, I got the gray bar there. But... Nothing happened there. Do it again. Do it again just so you guys can see it. Alright. So that's the advantage of playing with that speed, you know what I'm saying? What's going on, Remy? I don't know if that's Remy in there, but... Anyways. So that is... that for that. Okay, so you have varied blocks then. Okay, so light attacks, you can introduce different types of blocks then, you know, different you can also use different types of special attacks, like say if like an EX attack has different block stun versus like a non-EX attack, you can also use that for your pressure purposes too. You know what I'm saying? Because that variety, that block stun can be enough to make your opponent think like, I don't know what's going on, I'm getting overwhelmed. That's basically the key. Remember how I was saying, make your big moves look like your small moves, and your small moves are unseeable, right? So block stun will help you do that, okay? So the next approach, or the technical aspect of playing faster, is to vary your advantage, okay? So a lot of the times there's this common consensus where it's good to pressure with, you know, the most advantageous normal that you have, right? Yeah, that can be true to a degree, but that's not always the case. There are going to be times where you're probably going to want to pressure with 0 on block attacks or even negative attacks, depending on spacing. So I will show you why. So with varied advantage, I will give you this. So let's say I have Cammy doing... Cammy's gonna do into that, right? Cool. So let's say Cammy does that. Now, actually, no, let me redo this. So I'm gonna want to end this with a negative poke. So let's say I do, damn that. Into that, okay? This really weird block string I just made up. Alright. Boom. So he catches, or he gets caught with his jab, right? with the stand fierce. So when a situation like that happens, a lot of times when somebody is negative at the end of a string like this, they're going to try to press a poke so that you don't close the distance. You don't close the gap, which goes into the last lesson I think that we talked about, right? So let's say Sagat gets sniped. I'm going to be more hesitant when that spacing gets created again because of that scenario. Even though you were negative on the stand medium kick, right? I got hit there, so I'm like, damn, I don't really know if I want to commit to a longer reaching poke, because what if they, you know, they walk out of range and whiff punish me for even more damage? Like, I don't know. I just don't know if I really want to risk that. So what will happen is, let's say I do this again. So the key button here is that stand medium kick, right? Where I'm negative. But now, what I could do is I can take advantage of my opponent's silence or their lack of aggression, because I created that variety. See? Just because I took advantage of giving that variety on my advantage at the end of the string. So instead of me like always going for that plus situation where they're not going to want to press something, I can purposely put myself at a negative situation, and then I can punish that universal tendency to try to take their turn back, right? Depending on the button they press, of course. And because I punished them maybe like really hard, maybe with DP into super, they're going to be more inclined to just chilling out when that scenario happens again. So now, because I am aware of that, I can use negative situations as positive situations, if that makes sense. So a lot of times you'll see people in -2 situations that they'll still do something like really crazy, like a dash up, because they're aware of the fact that their opponent is aware of the fact of some sort of mind game that's going on there. All right? There's some sort of consistent element that's bothering them. Like maybe they have meter and they can EXDP on a -2 situation, right? So you can use that as a mix-up. And then you can play really fast and dash up and take the ground, and now your opponent's like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that. And another thing too is you don't have to just dash. You can do other types of movement. So instead of me doing the dash, I could do a jump in. All right, I can do a jump dive kick, like. You know, because a lot of times when you jump in on somebody and they're not prepared for you to jump, if it's just like their mind isn't on something, they're more likely to DP you. Let's say like Cammy does this block string, but I'm just kind of chilling. I'm like, oh, okay, DP. But if I'm looking for the stand fierce, I'm like, oh wait, what? Weird, that wasn't fierce. And now because I was thinking, I'm playing slower, right? You know, I was saying you don't want to think when you do these things. It's because you play slower. Same thing can happen on your opponent's end defensively. They start to think about the situation, and then now their anti-airs become sluggish, and their defensive options aren't as accurate. So all of this is to just kind of create this narrative in your opponent's brain that you're trying to do something, right, specific, and then you're altering your block stun or your advantage enough so that your opponent gets kind of thrown off, right? So another thing you can do, this is a really, really good tactic. Knuckle Dude does this a lot. So he'll like, you know, instead of doing something like that, he'll go. Oops, wrong one. Oh, I didn't, wait. Did I not record it? See? And then that makes it seem like Cammy's playing so much faster because instead of me ending my string with that crouching strong, I ended it with that stand light kick. So this is kind of like I'm combining both the elements of the varied block stun and the varied advantage. Because the stand light kick is only +1 on block. Crouching strong is only +1 also, see? But you see how much faster it looks? It kind of overwhelms you, and now I feel like I have to make a decision, right? But if I make that decision, if I do that jab, then I might end up walking into that stand fierce, right? So then now I have all these things to think about, and now my brain is kind of scattered amongst options as opposed to being clear-minded, right? So you can see how on the opposite end of these elements are ways, like if your opponent is doing the opposite thing, then that is detrimental to them having that solid stoic defense that will help them block their way out of bad situations. Okay. So next. Alright, so varied timing. So in Street Fighter there are only 2 timings. The 2 timings are reversal timing or delay. That's it. It's as simple as that, okay? So if I, for example, Cammy does a... Actually, let me do this. Alright. Cammy does this. So you see how reversal popped up on the screen? But reversal didn't pop up there. It's because I didn't do my option, my reversal special attack. Meaning I didn't do it on the first frame of opportunity, okay? So if I don't do something on the first frame of opportunity, that means it's delayed. How much is it delayed by? That's another story. That's what you have to figure out depending on the player you're playing against, okay? But if you can simplify things to reversal or non-reversal, it helps you figure out how to narrow things down, all right? In terms of your timing. So like, let's say I am pressuring somebody and I do this block string with Cammy. We'll do this again. All right. So this Street Fighter 5 record feature is so inconsistent. Oh, there you go. Okay. So right here, I'm immediately, well, at least I'm trying to. It's kind of hard to record it. If Sagat could crouch, it should be a lot easier. So let me try this again. So I do a reversal dash, basically. So reversal, the way it works is that whoever's in block stun and they try to get out, whatever they do out of block stun pops up. That's what's typically the reversal. But reversal can be shown on the offensive in your mind if you pay attention to timing. That's how I use it. So I use it kind of as like a metric, as like a metronome in a sense. Where obviously Cammy can't reversal dash, right? Because one, it's not a special. So it wouldn't show up anyways, even if she blocked my attack. And 2, she's on the offensive. But the point is in my head to tell myself, Cammy is doing reversal dash, okay? So you can dash immediately, which would be a reversal, the first frame of opportunity after block stun, right? Which is what is going on here. And you see how that's really overwhelming, right? When you combine it with the first 3 elements we talked about. The timing, the block stun, and the advantage, right? So my mind is kind of racing. I'm like frantic, like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on. So what you could do is, as Cammy, if Cammy sees that I'm trying to be preemptive in stopping the dashes, right? And I do that. What Cammy could do is that she can alter her timing. Right? Or she can do this. So I'll show you this one first. See? And now she dashed in on... She basically dashed in on the jab that was supposed to catch her immediately. Alright? Thank you, Just210, for the follow. I appreciate it, bro. Okay, there you go. Now I got the blocks in. See? So she's just because she changed her timing slightly, she dashed in on my reversal jab. So it's important when you are trying to vary your timing to understand your opponent's timing also. Because in theory, right, if she does an immediate dash like she did on the first sequence, right, like right here, she gets hit by this. She gets hit by that. Cool, right? But because she sees my timing, she adjusts her speed, and she's still playing really fast because she's overwhelming me. And now she basically whiff punishes my jab. Right? Because I'm expecting this to hit. So usually when a smart player whiffs a button, they've told themselves mentally that they've overcommitted. So they're like, oh, let me chill out. They're like, let me chill. So it's really good to do this stuff against those intelligent players. Because then they're the players that are more likely to kind of chill out when you've convinced them that they've overextended. Okay? So this is the same block string, but all I did was just delay the timing. But you see, it's still very fast, though. It's very fast and fluid offense. Because in my mind, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I'm like, wait, what? Why didn't this hit last time? See, and now confusion starts to arise, and now I feel like I have to make choices, multiple choices. I have to decide. I have to go and figure out like all these things, and now I'm thinking, and I'm basically not playing in that battle instinct mode. Okay. So the other option was, you know, you could vary your timing with not just a movement, but with an attack, right? So instead of me immediately doing the stand heavy punch, I delayed. See? And now I got whiff punish. Alright. And next, so varied movement. Varied movement. So when you're playing, you know, when you're trying to play fast and you're doing all of these things that I was showing you guys, a big part of it, a big aspect of it is to introduce different ways of closing the gap or increasing the gap, like the distance between you and your opponent, closing it or increasing it. If you show multiple ways of accomplishing that, it makes you look like you're playing even faster than you actually are. So, you know, there are multiple players that you can think of that play really fast and neutral. Like Infiltration was one. He was the premier player to do this in this game, moving with Nash the way he was. Like everybody was so like frustrated. Because of how he was so mobile and fluid with his decisions and stuff. Because all of his decisions, he already committed to it. He varied his timing, his advantages, used different buttons. But most of all, it was the movement. It was the movement aspect of it that brings all of this together and is basically like the foundation that makes all of this work. Okay, like independently of each other, you can use these tactically speaking, but to really cement this and hone it and make it a very strong aspect of your playstyle, you'd want to base the varied blocks on the advantage, the timing off of the movement, okay? So, I'll show you that. So, Cammy is a good example of this. So let's say I do this, right? Oops, I'm gonna have to walk up into this. Right? So there's one. That's two. All right. So now we have 3 different offensive sequences with Cammy I have to look out for now. So it's gonna be a lot harder for me to anti her because she's introducing the different approaches to close the ground. So you see I'm doing the same block string, but at the end of the block string, I'm introducing different movement, right? I'm like, oh wait, what? I thought you were gonna jump cross up. What is going on, right? And now I can end up whiffing that, where I'm looking for the anti-air, right? And then maybe she just dashes. Maybe she catches me on buffering my DP, right? And now she got me on block stun. So this all works because of the influence of the string. The string is kind of telling me like, hey, I'm going to close the gap, and the way I closed the gap before was by doing this. But then all of a sudden you introduce some different aspect to it, some sort of variation that is enough to make me question myself in the moment and say, wait, what's going on? And then now you get me in block stun. At worst, or at best, you end up jumping in on a button that was meant to counter that, or making me whiff my DP and you get a crush counter, all because of this. All right. So vary your movement. So you can do dashes, you can do jumps, you can do special attacks, you can do hop kick overheads if you have those like Karen. You can do walk up instead of dashing. You don't always have to do the big moves, all right? The subtle moves like walking up that's just as, if not more scary, because you can block at any given moment and your opponent's expecting you to attack. Even if you're moving forward on the ground, they're still anticipating you like doing whatever offensive sequence you did before, all right? It might be just for a second or two that they're under that impression, but it's just enough for you to close the gap and potentially throw them for a stun or anything like that, all right? So playing fast, you're going to want to play fast by taking advantage of your opponent's emotions at any given point. Like if you can make your opponent play emotionally, then, or scratch that, not emotionally, because emotionally would be faster. That's more instinctual. You'd want them to play with their mind intact, right? So you want to make something obvious, because if you don't make something obvious, then it's really easy for, it's like a joke going over somebody's head, right? They're like, they didn't see the joke, so they're not gonna laugh at it. So same instance here, where you do something offensively, but they don't see what you're trying to set up because it was so subtle that they don't fall for it. But if you make it really obvious, very like big, and it's like, I keep doing this block string, the Cammy string I was doing right there with the stand short, crouch jab, stand short. Like if I keep doing that and I keep doing jump dive kick every single time, then they're going to be like, all right, you're doing this again, So yeah, it definitely can. Which is why I like talking about it, because I feel like nobody's doing this, There's like only probably like 2 people I can think of that are doing this. And I'm one of them. The other one would be Kaizen Master, in my opinion. I don't see anybody else doing this. So, and it's convenient that he was my teacher too, right? But, so, movement. Yes, yeah, so everything that's in the technical aspect would definitely be built off of the variation of movement. And then I would say the mindset aspect would be off of trust, because in order to have a clear goal in mind, you have to trust that goal, right? In order to have acceptance, you have to trust the fact that you'll be okay regardless of the repercussions. And to be decisive, you have to trust the fact that will work. You know what I'm saying? Like that specific thing, like you're going to stick to it. That's it. All right? So that is that for that aspect of the stream. So now I'm going to show you guys some of the videos though. Okay? So I have some examples. I have some pretty decent examples I want to show you guys. All right? So, I have 3 examples I'm going to show you guys. So I have a block stun example with I think these are actually all. Are these all? No, 3 of them are block stun, and 1 of them is movement. Okay, a movement example. So the first example I'm going to show you is Daigo and Tokido right now. So after Daigo blocks this negative fireball, you're going to see how he uses the advantage. And the so it's more so the advantage. So this is a different example. He uses the negative aspect of the fireball against Tokido's intelligence to just close the gap really quickly. All right. So he doesn't get much off of it, but you'll see that Daigo does do this, right? So he doesn't always just play off of this idea that, hey, he's negative, but my dash is slow. My dash is 17. Even though he's probably like -3. If I dash, I'm technically -14. I shouldn't do that. Like, no. There's no reason to think like that. You can use this against your opponent, all right? Oh, oops. That's the wrong example. I gotta go back 210. This example I'm gonna show you guys later, though, but... So, 210. So this is the one I was telling you guys about, alright? So watch after this fireball. Daigo just dashed up and just tried to grab him immediately. Why? Because Daigo knows that Tokido is negative, and Daigo knows Tokido knows that, right? Because he's a masterful Akuma player. He's arguably the best player in the world. So he holds him to high standard. So because he's aware of the fact that Tokido's intelligent, he can use that against him by playing outside of his realm of, you know, like common sense in a way, right? Like, oh yeah, you know, Tokido is negative. He knows he's negative. He's going to chill out. And I'm far away. I'm not really much of a threat, but let me sneak in this throw. Especially because it's earlier in the match rather. A throw's not going to do much. He'll be thrown mid-screen. He's not in the corner. It's not like there's a throw loop involved. And it's not like he's near stun. So even if he dashes in on him, it's like, okay, right? But this was definitely a emotional response from Tokido. Because if this was an intelligent response from a Tokido, I think that he would have froze and got thrown. But this was more instinctual, right? Because it was so sudden. So he did a delay tech. Alright? And it shows you that he's the one that threw, so that means he threw secondly. If it was the other way around, if it said throw escape on Daigo's side, that means that Tokido was trying to react to his dash with throw. But because it's on this side, that means he did the throw afterwards. So this was more so, or more likely, a defensive throw in this situation. Okay? So if he had snuck in this throw and it landed, then I think Tokido would have been more like, he was probably more like, you know, like analytical, and then more so like confused in a sense, analytically speaking. But I think it was just so sudden that he was just like, oh, I'm gonna attack, right? Because if he was intelligent, he'd be like, oh, I'll just take the throw, like whatever, this isn't gonna bother me. Like, you're mid-screen, I'm not gonna be in a throw loop situation, I'm not near stun, it's okay. But this was the fact that he teched this early, you know, and everybody's like, hey, take the throw, it's okay to take the throw early in the set. It just tells me that he was kind of thrown in a situation really quick, and it was kind of a fight or flight moment, even though it was just like a small moment. But that gives Daigo a lot of information. Him by playing fast like that, like he can use that against him in a stun scenario where he's like, oh, okay, so if I can set up an emotional response in you, you're more likely to delay tech. All right. So let's see. I'll give you this other example at 7:33. So at 7:33, we have a movement example, okay? So this is a movement example. So I want you to see, he does the air throw, right? Okay, so after this, Daigo does a slow boom, and he just walks all the way behind it, and he throws him. See? So these are scenarios that are like, it's like, what are you doing? And he's just throwing out of confusion, like delay teching out of confusion, right? So that's a moment where it's really good for Daigo to close the gap, because he made a really hard read on Tokido in that situation, right? Anytime a hard read is earned against an intelligent opponent, they usually question for like that next couple of seconds, like how did that happen? What set that up? So that way they can counter it or avoid the situation entirely again. So that's what allows Daigo to, you know, like, to set this up, to get that fireball and just walk behind it. Right? So because he's playing in a way that's taking advantage of the intelligent aspect of Tokido, it makes him seem like he's a lot faster, even though he's playing at the same pace that, well, not pace rather, but like his animation doesn't change. The character is literally not changing. It's just that he is changing in the mind of Tokido. So he's appearing faster and more intense with his movement and his decisions. All right? So there's that. So the other two examples I have are Bonchan versus Nemo. So this one is to show varied movement also on how Bonchan closes the gap. I think Bonchan is one of the best players at this because he played Nash, and I think he took Infiltration's formula and then he basically he enhanced it, and you'll see how he closes the gap in several different ways in a matter of seconds.
I just stick to the funny stuff.
All right.
I was about to ask. Oh, wait a minute. Here comes the Aegis Reflector.
No, oops. Gotta go back.
Yourself out just yet, Yipes. Oh, Nash being played
all right, right here.
Anywhere in the circuit.
The confirm of the standing fears.
Oh, he found the gap with the EX headbutt. Very smart play. He doesn't want to get hit with all the advantage setups.
Yo, I take that back. My man Bonchan's making me look
all right,
like
so you've seen the Sand Strong cancel immediately.
Yo, I take that back.
into the moonsault,
Bonchon's making me
right?
look like a fool
Throw
right
tech backdash into fireball,
now.
okay? But then he uses the advantage of that to close the gap, especially when he hits him. When you hit somebody with a fireball, they typically, like a smarter player, will chill out. Because remember, anytime a more seasoned player makes a mistake, they're more disciplined in understanding why they made a mistake or the fact that they did make a mistake. So they're more prone to chilling out. All right? So whenever you see things like this, you can take advantage of the moments of hesitation or delay, and then you can commit to something, and it makes you appear a lot faster. Right?
Hey, man.
Don't listen to the analytics. That's why I'm the funny guy. I just stick to the funny stuff.
You let me.
A fool right now.
Hey, man.
So again, let's watch this all over again.
Yo, I take that back. My man Bonchon's making me look like a fool right now.
Hey, man.
Don't listen to the analytics. That's why I'm the funny guy. I just stick to the funny stuff.
You let me fool. I was about to ask. Oh, wait a minute. Here comes a.
All right. And then lastly, we have this example versus XYZZY. This was actually pretty godlike. Let me see. I think I got to rewind it a little bit. So in this example, we're going to see like another block stun variation of this, where Bonchon does a low forward the very first, but he does this so fast that when you play fast also, you can be more subtle with picking up like subtle things. Like if during, for example, you'll see Bonchon commits to like a movement, it's during the movement that he takes a mental picture of the screen and he sees what just happened. It's during those moments that it's a lot more subtle, a lot less obvious to the opponent that you might have noticed something, because all they see is movement. They don't see you. They don't think you're thinking. They don't think you're observing, even though you're moving. So that's another pro aspect or advantage of playing really fast, is that you're a lot more deceiving in terms of your intentions at any given moment. All right.
No CX. Bonchon in a really tight situation. He's still got a bar. Oh my God! Can't get over it. The side kick. One more.
So did you see that? Look at that. So right after that dash up low forward, XYZZY did the reversal jab. All right. So we're gonna watch this in slow motion. Well, actually, we'll watch it in regular motion to the KO, and then we'll watch it in slow motion.
XYZZY can take this with any hit. Bonchon is fighting for his life right now. Any hit will do it. Either opponent. This is tight. Oh!
See? Okay.
Bonchon's in this. And Bonchon. Oh my God! Can't get over it.
So let's watch this again. This time I'll play it at like 0.5 speed.
No CX. Bonchon in a really tight situation. Still got a bar. Oh my God! Can't get over it.
I think you gotta KO him with EX Scythe, but so you see during the backdash, he's seen the jab.
Bonchon is fighting for his life right now. Any hit will do it. Either opponent.
Bonchon in slow motion. That's so funny.
Bonchon barely surviving that.
A slow, brutal comeback from Bonchon's Nash.
So,
Just to take it with.
So yeah, so guys, before I do end the stream, I would like to give some advice. If you're going to practice like this, what I want you guys to do is to create a sequence of attacks, literally from one knockdown to the next Oki, and I want you to do just everything very automatic like a robot, okay? Because you want to practice getting rid of thinking when you want to play fast, all right? So if you're going to play a Kami, like I'll show you an example, right? It's kind of hard to have these gloves on, but so if I'm playing Kami, damn it. So I'm going to do spiral. God damn it. Alright. So I would basically want to create a sequence in my head, like after this spiral arrow knockdown, I'm going to play like this, right? Like, that's how you want to play. Literally, like, I got knocked down. The next situation, I'm going to do this string. And if it hits, I'm going to go into this knockdown. And the next situation, I'm going to do this. And if once I get the Oki, I'm going to do this block string. And if that hits, you want to keep doing that. But you want to practice it as if it hits. All right? Practice it as if it hits. And then I would say work on the block string aspect of it. Like the hit confirm or whatever. Because the block string part is where you're thinking. But the hit confirm part, you're not thinking. Because if it hits, you go right back into it. That's what you want to develop first. But then when you get that down, when you can just automatically go into it, that's when you, like, okay, now I introduce, what if they block it? If they block it, that's when you start to add the layers. If they block this, I'm going to do stand short, crouch, jab, and then if that doesn't hit them, I walk up, throw them. You see what I'm saying? And you create a system. So then you start to create this autopilot, or this flow chart rather, not autopilot. But it is autopilot to a degree. But you create this flow chart, and I just practice playing that for a very, like, I'd say like 100 games play like that. To the point where you're just really bored, all right? You feel like you're not getting any mental stimulation. That's when you know you're doing a great job, because that means your mind it's not entering the game at that point. Your mind is just watching at its own leisure, right? That's what you want to get to that point. So practice a system, and then of course review this set, the stream. Take whichever ones you want to practice. Work on one element at a time. But start with your inner. Identify which of the 4 elements that we talked about in the mindset do you have the hardest time with, and then I would say explore that aspect of you as a person. Okay, so if, let's say you don't know how to have a clear goal, well, figure out what it means to have a clear goal. What goals do you want? Which, blah blah blah. If you have a hard time trusting yourself, why do you not trust yourself? Work on that aspect of you as a person. If you have a hard time accepting things, is there something with your ego that's not letting you accept things that are outside of you? Like, is there some sort of bias that you have towards certain things? Why do you have a bias towards certain things? If you have a hard time being decisive, like, where is this confusion occurring? Like, those things, just tackle that one at a time, and then work on the technical aspects, like I was saying. You know what I'm saying? And then, you create a sandwich. You put all the mindset together, and then you can do all of those things in the technical aspects of playing fast, like I talked about. And then, boom, you become just this extremely effective, scary player in the game simply because you can do all of that. All right? So, guys, I appreciate it as always. I love every single one of you.